Eastern State Penitentiary, the prison of shadows and souls. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is home to one of the most notorious and eerie historical landmarks in the United States, Eastern State Penitentiary. Built in 1829, this Gothic fortress once housed some of America's most dangerous criminals, and it has earned its place in the annals of history not only for its innovative design but also for the torment and horror that occurred within its cold, stone walls. Over the years, the penitentiary became infamous for its brutal isolation practices and the haunting stories of the souls that never left, trapped forever within the decaying corridors. Eastern State Penitentiary was designed as a radical experiment in prison reform. Based on the Pennsylvania system, it aimed to rehabilitate inmates through complete isolation and solitary confinement. The belief was that solitude would force prisoners to reflect on their crimes and find redemption through silent introspection. Each inmate was kept in a small, windowless cell for 23 hours a day, with only a narrow skylight, known as the Eye of God, to remind them of the heavens above. When they were allowed to leave their cells for an hour of exercise, they were hooded so that they would not see or interact with other prisoners. Silence was strictly enforced, and communication between inmates was forbidden. What was supposed to be a model of reform quickly turned into a nightmare of psychological torture. The isolation drove many prisoners to madness, and soon, the penitentiary became a place of suffering, despair, and darkness. The echoes of the prisoners' tormented minds reverberated through the halls, and the once hopeful vision of penitence through solitude crumbled under the weight of its own cruelty. One of the prison's most infamous inmates was Al Capone, the notorious gangster who was incarcerated at Eastern State in 1929. Although Capone's stay was brief, it is said that even he was not immune to the supernatural forces that plagued the prison. According to legend, Capone was haunted during his time at the penitentiary by the ghost of James "Jimmy" Clark, one of the victims of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, a crime orchestrated by Capone's gang. Capone reportedly suffered from terrifying nightmares, waking in the middle of the night screaming for help, claiming that Jimmy's ghost was tormenting him. Guards and fellow inmates were unnerved by Capone's distress, but nothing could be done to ease his terror. Capone's story is just one of many that speak to the paranormal activity said to occur within Eastern State's walls. Over the years, numerous prisoners died inside the penitentiary, some from illness, others from suicide, and a few from violent encounters with guards or fellow inmates. The sorrow, fear, and pain that permeated the prison have left behind a dark and oppressive atmosphere that many believe has trapped the souls of the dead within its stone walls. Perhaps one of the most chilling aspects of Eastern State Penitentiary is the sheer number of ghost sightings reported by visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators over the years. The most famous area of the prison for these hauntings is Cell Block 12, an area known for its eerie atmosphere and reports of ghostly apparitions. Visitors have claimed to see shadowy figures darting between the cells, only to vanish when approached. Some have heard the distant sound of whispers, voices of the long-dead prisoners, still murmuring to each other in the afterlife. Another notorious spot for paranormal activity is Cell Block 4, where the figure of a ghostly man has been seen pacing the corridors, seemingly trapped in a loop of endless walking. The man is believed to be a former prisoner, driven mad by years of solitary confinement. His pacing is accompanied by the sound of distant cries and footsteps, as if the spirits of the prison's past are forever walking the same paths they walked in life. But the most unsettling part of the prison might be death row, where the spirits of the condemned are said to linger long after their executions. Death row is steeped in an overwhelming sense of dread, with visitors often reporting feelings of unease and fear as they walk through its darkened halls. Some have experienced sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that defy explanation, and the sensation of being watched by something unseen. Shadows move in the corners of the cells, and the faint clinking of chains can sometimes be heard, as if the prisoners' spirits are still bound in their ghostly chains. One of the most famous ghost stories associated with Eastern State is that of the locksmith, a former worker who experienced a terrifying encounter while restoring the prison in the 1990s. According to his account, as he was repairing one of the old cell doors, he felt a sudden and overwhelming force surround him. The air grew cold, and he heard the sound of metal scraping against stone, followed by the loud clanging of cell doors slamming shut. The walls of the cell seemed to come alive with tortured faces, faces of the men who had once been imprisoned within those very walls. The locksmith fled the scene, shaken and pale, convinced that he had come face to face with the spirits of the prisoners who had never left. The prison's dark history is also punctuated by stories of cruel punishments that were inflicted on the inmates. One of the most brutal was the mad chair, a punishment device in which prisoners were strapped so tightly that they couldn't move for days on end. Their limbs would swell and sometimes break due to the extreme pressure, leaving them in agonizing pain. Many inmates who were subjected to this torture died, and it is said that their restless spirits still linger in the areas where they suffered. Another cruel device was the iron gag, which was used to enforce the strict silence policy. The device consisted of a metal clamp placed on the tongue of the prisoner, which was then chained to their wrists. Any movement would tear at the flesh of the prisoner's mouth, causing excruciating pain. The haunting cries of those who died from this punishment are still said to echo through the corridors, a reminder of the unimaginable suffering endured by the inmates. In cell block 6, strange faces have been spotted, peering out from the cells where no one should be. Visitors have reported feeling touched by invisible hands, their hair pulled or clothing tugged by unseen forces. The feeling of being watched is ever present, as though the spirits of the prisoners are still keeping a wary eye on those who dare to walk through their domain. Paranormal investigators and ghost hunters have flocked to Eastern State Penitentiary for years, drawn by the overwhelming evidence of supernatural activity. Many have captured eerie photographs, recordings of strange voices, and unexplainable phenomena on their equipment. One particularly famous EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recording captured a voice whispering "I'm sorry," a chilling reminder of the regret and remorse that may still haunt the souls of the prisoners. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary stands as both a historical landmark and a popular destination for those fascinated by the paranormal. The prison is open for public tours, and visitors can explore its crumbling corridors and decaying cells. The once grand architecture has been overtaken by time, with ivy creeping through the cracks in the stone, and rusted iron bars casting long shadows over the desolate cell blocks. Each year, during the Halloween season, Eastern State Penitentiary transforms into Terror Behind the Walls, one of the most popular haunted house attractions in the country. Actors dressed as prisoners and guards roam the prison, but for many visitors, the real terror lies in the knowledge that some of the spirits haunting the prison are not part of the show. Many guests have reported experiencing strange sensations, hearing whispers in their ears, or feeling an inexplicable sense of dread as they make their way through the darkened cell blocks. Eastern State Penitentiary is more than just a relic of the past, it is a place where the line between the living and the dead is perilously thin. The spirits of the prisoners who suffered and died within its walls are said to remain, trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment. For those brave enough to visit, the prison offers a glimpse into a world where history and horror collide, and where the souls of the damned still wander, seeking redemption that may never come. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there is no denying that Eastern State Penitentiary holds a unique and terrifying place in America's haunted history. The prison's dark legacy, combined with the overwhelming reports of paranormal activity, makes it one of the most haunted places in the country, a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and the spirits of the dead are forever bound to the prison that broke their bodies and minds. For those who dare to walk its decaying halls, Eastern State Penitentiary is not just a historical site, it is a journey into the heart of darkness, a place where the cries of the dead still echo, and where the shadows may hold more than just memories of the past.